Joan, if you're listening to me, and I highly doubt you are, go home without anyone in tow because you're simply not ready. You think you're ready, but you're not ready. As long as you keep holding on to your late husband's memory, as long as you keep holding on to the life you had with him, the living large, and he was afraid of nothing, and all of the things, and as long as you keep putting your kids, your family first and foremost, you're better off staying in the situation you are in. Take it from me. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Silver and Sensational. It is the Lois, as in Lois Mills, welcoming you back and thanking you for tuning in as we continue our Golden Bachelorette saga. I firstly want to thank all of you for those incredible comments you write in. I love it. I love it.
And I can't deny the fact that you like me.
Just keep them coming because I really enjoy reading and replying to them. So, on that note, let's get down to brass tacks and episode 7. And God help us all. Let's just spare us. Actually, I think we only have one more episode. I say that because it just gets kind of, for me, sillier and sillier. But let's get into it and see what you might think after I tell you all of my thinking. So here we go. So it opens up with Joan and a former contestant in last year's Golden Bachelor, Nancy. And actually, I didn't mind this so much, and certainly not as much as being spoken to by a bachelorette who's like young enough to be her daughter, or granddaughter even. But at any rate, the two of them are chatting, and she's being very supportive of Joan, telling her she's going to make the right choice based on her heart. And she asks Joan, well, who's left? And when Joan gives her the 3 fellows that are left, I have to think to myself, well, she must have chosen the 3 most unusual names. You know, we got rid of Mark and Keith and Jordan, but now we have Guy, which maybe isn't quite so unusual. But CHOCK is, we know Chuck, we know Charles, we know Charlie, but CHOCK. And then, of course, Pascal, which probably in France isn't all that unusual, but it's unusual in the United States. So, at any rate, Joan is, giving her usual, not certain, worried about not being loyal to her husband, rata. And Nancy really supports her and says, listen, you deserve having someone in your life. And, says this thing that I thought just so poignant that I thought, is worth repeating. And that is, loneliness is not a place you stay. It's a place you pass through or walk through. And I thought, that's worth keeping in the back of our heads, isn't it? It's something that we have to keep in mind because often we think whatever state we're in is the state we're going to be forever. And we forget that nothing lasts forever. The good doesn't last forever and neither does the bad. So, that was sort of the opening, and then, of course, we went to commercial. And I have to say there are a lot of commercials on this program, boy, really a lot. So we open up with Guy. And Guy thinks he's falling in love. I think I heard him say this before. It seems to be like kind of his mantra. I think I'm falling in love. I think I'm falling in love.
What are you listening to?
Lois.
You gotta hear this one song. It'll change your life, I swear.
I think I'm falling in love. I think I'm falling in love. God, and then she sees a future with him. Joan tends to see a future with more than one person, but she thinks that he's farther along in his feelings for her than she is for him. And now he's getting emotional as he's telling her how much his daughters and his sister adored her, and he's holding back tears. He's getting very emotional.
And my sisters adored you.
And, he wants to let her know he's just not focused on his career. I think he may have been trying to say, so I don't need to stay in Reno. I mean, I think that's what he was trying to say. But then again, that's his career. He is 69. He's a ER doctor. I don't know how long ER doctors tend to stay in their positions, but nonetheless, I want to bring all of us back to this is the program where family comes first. So is he really going to leave his family to move to Baltimore? Big question. But anyway, she thinks that Guy would just make a great partner. And I guess she's accepted the fact that, he had a restraining order against him from his ex-wife. A few episodes ago, he explained that away with, it was a rough time in his life, I know a couple of you have said I was sort of cynical basically about CHOCK. But, you can't overlook the fact that if someone went as far as being a subject of a restraining order because he was going through a rough time, you kind of think, well, what if he goes through a rough time again? Do I have to do I have to execute a restraining order? It's sort of a red flag for me, but apparently Joan doesn't see any red flags. Now they go to dinner on their own, and there's just, he's really expressing his strong feelings, and, she's talking about, feeling a strong connection, but she's not being quite as effusive in her real feelings for him, which I'm not certain. And the more we get into, and we only have one more episode, I understand that, but I'm beginning to think that she isn't ready. But that remains to be seen. He's being really very effusive in his language with her, telling her what this falling in love with her. She's not saying a word about, she's not mentioning the L word at all. She thinks he's going to be a good partner, but then, now we go on to the fantasy suite. Well, apparently the fantasy suite is, their time away from the camera, and she makes it very clear that there won't be any sex, that she isn't comfortable with doing that, and she's particularly not comfortable with doing it with 3 guys. And, I could see the disappointment on Guy's face, and he was really regretful that he had taken the Cialis just too soon.
Stop taking Cialis and get medical help right away.
He's going to have to do a hide without a seek, because she ain't going to be seeking his hide, if you know what I mean. But anyway, this is YouTube. I have to clean up my act, so just bear with me. Anyway, it's no cameras. They get to spend quality time together without cameras on them. And, I'm sure they played a little kissy face and huggy bear.
She's still the one for you.
But, how do I know? I'm not, I wasn't behind the doors with them. And, now I'm going to also tell you yet once again that you'll see me glance down every now and again, perhaps put glasses on. It's because I take notes, and sometimes I put little items down that I may forget to just tell you off the cuff. So the next morning, he thinks that the night was the greatest night of his life. Well, I gotta say, for a guy that looked so goddamn disappointed that he wasn't going to get any sex, he puts it on the greatest time of his life. I don't know what would have happened if they would have, gotten it on. I honestly don't know. But then we go to, of course, Lois's favorite man she loves to make fun of, CHOCK. A tad earlier, the camera was on CHOCK having a one-on-one with Jesse. And my God, he's pouring his heart out that he is so in love with her and talking that, he wants to propose to her. And then again, CHOCK seems to be completely obsessed with the competition. Now, the reason I feel he's obsessed is that I really don't hear the other men concerning themselves with the same thing CHOCK concerns himself with. So that's why I, sort of feel that, is this like a competitive thing for this guy? Let me get on to when the two of them get together. When he sees her, you hear him in the background, he worries that she's, going to be on, in fantasy suites with his competition. What if she falls for one of them? And he's already told Jesse that he would be completely devastated and heartbroken if she chose someone other than him. Which is a lot of emotion for a kind of short-term relationship, and I don't even know that it's a relationship. How about short-term encounters? However, they get into an ATV and he's driving and she's, this is so much fun. She just loves all this adventure and rah, rah, rah and sis, boom, bah and all this stuff. And then they get to a picnic and they're sitting on a blanket. And I really have to say, I find CHOCK to be really smothering. Get this smothering sense.
I was just petting her with the fingers while we was walking along.
He's sitting on her. He's sort of like almost hovering over her. And, Joan comes up with the same routine of she feels safe. Now, she's added a few other things in addition to safe with CHOCK. She feels safe and she feels that he makes her feel seen. This is when I start to pick this apart. She's had 24 guys.
Joan, you've met all the men. How you feeling?
24. She's the only woman in the room. They're tripping over each other to garner her attention. How did she not feel seen through all of this? How she has been seen. I mean, look, the rest of us mature women would like to be seen a quarter of 1/100th, or let me say 1/24th of how she was seen. I kind of think she's picking up buzzwords, buzzwords that people of our generation, women in particular of our generation will say that, we're invisible. We're simply not seen. But that's being quite truthful because we do become invisible and we aren't really seen. But I'm not so sure that that's valid in her case. So, they went off for their fantasy suite. Of course, she, told him the same thing she told Guy. It's not going to be, the intimacy was going to be emotional and not physical. And so we find the next morning, CHOCK is sitting apparently in his room and he's journaling. And in his journaling, he's still talking about the competition. And maybe it's going to end up to be a big nothing, but I find it a little bit too strong for it to be without a red flag of some sort. If I were Joan and I knew of his worrying about the other guys all the time and always rushing in and showing, I'm number one, as we've seen in previous episodes where when it's time to end the program, he's the first one right there, zeroing in on Joan like, she's my property. All right. I know I'm not a fan of CHOCK. So my final word on CHOCK was something he said that I thought was tasteless, and what he was saying, I can't remember the exact words, but he somewhat insinuated that they did more than talk during the night of their fantasy suite. Ooh. And I thought, look, that's A, completely tasteless, even the insinuation of it. And if you're trying to show that you're, again, you've got the number one spot, still not the time or place. It's never the time or place as far as I'm concerned, because there's no reason to even mention it. None. Let alone throw something out there that causes everyone, including the other two guys, to wonder whether or not they got it on. Nah, you know what? But am I surprised? No, I'm not. I'm not surprised about CHOCK. That doesn't surprise me. I actually kind of thought it was a purposeful ploy to make people think that he's aced this. So we're going to see, aren't we? But at any rate, that was the CHOCK. And then we get to Pascal. And wow, Pascal and Jesse's one-on-one. Well, I'm thinking, I need to think how I'm going to say this, because there was something about Pascal the entire time that I felt about him that I know a lot of people didn't. And there was something about him that said there's more to this man than his Prada shirts and his fancy cars. But I couldn't put my finger on it. But we sure got the inside scoop or inside look at Pascal, who bared all to Jesse in the difficult time he was having with letting his guard down. And he really wanted to, but he started to, and I have to say, the man cried that he had been madly in love with someone the year before. They had broken up, they got back together, they broke up again, they got back together. And then when they broke up again, he said, listen, this is just, we cannot continue a relationship like this. But not only was it apparent, or is it apparent, that he is still hurting. He says he is. And he tries to explain that his inside is different than his outside. And I really now know what it was that I couldn't put my finger on. And that is his sense of protecting himself is to be flippant and, lots of fun and lots of this and all, just it always going and having a good time and being the life of the party. And truly inside, he's a frightened man who has been deeply hurt and who can be deeply hurt, which is why he's put up this wall. And you know what, guys? This I really not only can understand, I can really relate to. So, you look at a Pascal and you think this guy's got the world by his huevos. And it turns out that he hurts just as bad whether he's wearing a Walmart t-shirt or a Prada t-shirt. He hurts the same. And I thought it was a wonderful thing for this discussion to take place because it really put Pascal on a different level. And then we get to this, so they go off into sort of an outdoor space where there are Tahitian ceremonies taking place. And you've got the natives with their fronds and they're wearing leis, and all of it was kind of doing okay. They were doing this, what they called a bonding ceremony, and it's to release their fears. And he wanted to release his fear of being committed or getting involved again. She wanted to release her fear of maybe falling in love and then not honoring John's memory, John being her late husband, not honoring his memory. And he was just not ready to talk on an emotional level. And it turned out that ceremony freaked Pascal out big time. Now she began to really feel, or I shouldn't say think, she felt this connection. She feels this connection with him. She likes to say that Pascal reminds her of her late husband, John, who loved living large. Now, I'm just going to do an aside now. I know several of you have commented on her late husband's legal difficulties. I really don't want to get into that. Heard you. It's, when somebody loves somebody, whatever they do that may not be kosher, it doesn't make a difference to them. In fact, she's going to stand behind her man. But for people like us on the outside, we're saying, well, he wasn't such a saint after all. Well, if any of you thought that 32 years of marriage, that this guy was a saint for the 32 years, then I don't know what planet you're living on. But we all know that any relationship, certainly of that sort of longevity, was going to have times where you're going to find out that he is the devil incarnate. It's one of those things, I remember my own mother, who didn't have a good word to say to her about my father. When he was dead, all of a sudden he was he was a saint and he was beatified by the church. What can I say? But he begins to tell her about the love of his life and how much he was in love with this woman last year. And it was a very, very, very difficult breakup. And before he had time to come up for air from it, his daughter signed him up for the Golden Bachelorette. And he didn't resist because he figured, listen, there's 24 guys. She's not going to pick me. And he tells Joan this.
And you had 24 guys, and why am I here? Why me?
That he went along with it. I mean, why not? Why not? And I think what happened is as the weeks went on, firstly, just putting Joan aside for the moment, those guys really, really created a bond among themselves. And I saw Pascal get really involved with the other guys as friends. And then I think he confessed he got scared because he really started to have feelings for Joan. He was trying to say to her that he can't be where she wants him to be at this time. I always felt that Pascal was a good candidate. I know many of you have written that you didn't think he was, but I believed he was, and his opening up with Jesse and with Joan just confirmed to me that my feelings about him were correct. He just needed more time. I think the producers just pushed. They were either going to make this a boy or a girl with Pascal. And so he ended up saying to her, he knows what being in love feels like, and this just isn't it.
I know what love is. I've experienced it. You've experienced it. And I care about you as a friend, but I'm not in love.
And he just didn't feel the spark that he should feel for someone being in love. I don't even want to say that he handled it well, because I don't think this was handling as we kind of think of what that word means. He was so open and so honest, and he was so devastated at what he knew to be hurtful to her. He was really beside himself that he had to hurt Joan, because he really cares about Joan, just that he just wasn't ready. And you know what? Maybe he would never be ready for Joan. I don't know. I'm sure he doesn't know. But I thought that as much as she was hurt, I honestly believe that that encounter, that part, is probably the most real, truthful part of the entire 7 weeks we've been watching this. His telling her he's simply not feeling what he should be feeling was the most honest thing I've seen on that program. I don't know what you guys think. I know you'll let me know. She just wants to leave. She just wants to get back to her room. She wants to leave. Now, let me get to now that she's going back and she's feeling all these things that she's feeling. I was a little surprised at Joan's reaction. I mean, for her to feel that she was unlovable and that there is no hope in her life. I don't know what to say, because the night before she was at the picnic and all of this with CHOCK, she seemed to be very into CHOCK. Much more physical with CHOCK, because CHOCK is much more physical with her than she ever was with Pascal. And what I felt with Pascal, and I saw it myself, you guys probably did too, Pascal always greeted her with a hug, a short kiss. It was very clear to me that Pascal was not madly in love. And I think Pascal would have been very at ease with having been eliminated 5 episodes ago. Because I think he likes Joan a lot, would love to have her as a friend. But I always saw this greeting between them as more good friends than potential lovers. But then again, that was my take on it. But for her to, she really was emoting hurt beyond hurt. And I just don't understand this after 2 other men, and not to mention the other 21, and I'm eliminating Pascal at the moment, were all imbued with her, that she's suddenly this one person telling her that he doesn't feel the spark would have her thinking herself as being unlovable and that there's no hope. So I'm thinking, and we're going to find out next week, aren't we? I'm thinking that maybe she's going to walk away with no one. And I'll tell you what, at this point, Joan, if you're listening to me, and I highly doubt you are, go home without anyone in tow, because you're simply not ready. You think you're ready, but you're not ready. As long as you keep holding on to your late husband's memory, as long as you keep holding on to the life you had with him, the living large, and he was afraid of nothing, and all of the things, and as long as you keep putting your kids, your family first and foremost, you're better off staying in the situation you are in. Take it from me. There really is, and I'm going to finish this off with, I'm sorry if I'm starting to pontificate, but there really is nothing so terrible about not having a mate. And for you who puts your, and I'm talking to you now, Joan, even though you're not watching me, you have your family that you put so much of your energy into. Are you ready to put that kind of energy into someone that has just stepped into your life? You got lots to think about, lots, because I sure hope that these producers aren't going to do the same garbage they did for the Golden Bachelor and get 2 people engaged and married, and then they never see each other for 3 months and then file for divorce, which a marriage certificate isn't even dry yet. So this is what I'm thinking, is that maybe I just don't feel that she is really ready. I think she figured, and people telling her, you've been alone 6 years, it's time, I get it. And, yes, she would like to have someone, but her reaction to this said it all to me. Her reaction, as far as I was concerned, was an overreaction to what the situation really called for. Had she been hurt because, I didn't hear anything about, oh my God, he was going to be the one for me and he doesn't feel the same way about me. Could go along with it. But there was none of that. It was, I'm unlovable and there's no hope for me. That's a whole lot of emotion that I don't think this situation called for. So on that note, we are all looking forward to next week to see what happens with CHOCK and Guy now that Pascal is no longer on the scene. And so I thank all of you for tuning in. Please continue to write in your comments, go down into our description, click on the link that takes you to our blog. And then, of course, you know the routine. If you haven't subscribed, please do so and share us with your friends and family. Hit the like button, and I've been a bit late to this week, so always be certain to press the notification bell, because while we're doing Golden Bachelor, our schedule is a little turned upside down because of the way we need to watch it and review it. But at any rate, thank you all so much for tuning in. I so appreciate your support. Take care, be good, have a wonderful week. See you soon. Bye now.